You're watching Behind the Screens. Grab some popcorn, fill up a drink, and take a seat. Our feature presentation is about to begin.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you may be listening, and welcome back to another brand new episode of Behind the Screens. I'm Chris Jason, and joined as always is my co-host and best friend, Mike Lickowed. Mike, how you doing today?
I'm doing very well today, Chris, and I'm super jazzed to be here on this, our second episode of the most outrageous podcast you've ever listened to.
That's right. Now, today we're talking about a film that has really, honestly, stood the test of time, if we're being honest, right?
Very much so. A film that's lasted over 10 years of pop culture and superhero praise. This will basically be the format of Behind the Screens going forward. As you may recall, last week we gushed about 13 episodes of Batman the Animated Series. We'll basically be doing that bi-weekly until we finish that series and then move on to our next one. But in between those segments, we're going to be talking about films, gushing about the plot, the backgrounds, the themes, the actors, everything that went into making the films, the amazing marvels or the devilish disasters that they ended up being. And of course, being as how we're lovers of pop culture, the mainstead of films that we'll be talking about for the foreseeable future are superhero films.
Yeah, because, well, let's be honest, ever since, like, a few years ago, we've really seen a comic book movie boom. But in the past, they've always been seen as kids stuff. Let's see. For every Superman, we've had a dozen steals. For every Spider-Man, we've had a few dozen
Daredevils.
Yep. And then for every Batman, we've had bat nipples.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I can't wait to start gushing about those, my friend. But we figured for our very first superhero film segment on this, our second episode of Behind the Screens, we would look at the inaugural film which kickstarted the greatest cinematic universe, both superhero or otherwise, in cinema history. 2008's Iron Man.
Oh, this movie was basically the pedestal for the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward.
I know. Honestly, believe it or not, my first introduction to this film, and honestly Tony Stark, the character of Iron Man in general, was the video game on the PlayStation 2. I played it without ever having seen the movie several times over, and I thought to myself, these characters are pretty cool. Maybe if I ever get the chance many years later, I should probably see this movie. And it took over 10 years, but I finally did it.
And we're just here to discuss about this movie and how iconic it still is, and, you know, how it kind of set up most of the MCU going forward.
I know, especially considering the long-awaited process it took to get a film like this out there onto the big screen, the massive risk and gamble it was, not only for Marvel, but for, Paramount and, Stan Lee and everyone who put their heart and soul into making this an actually good movie, because every single Marvel movie before this was, well, of course, any film that was not X-Men related was a massive risk, and everything was just on the table, and they weren't sure if it was going to succeed or not.
Shouldn't you add Spider-Man to that list, too?
Perhaps I probably should. Then again, there's so many movies to gush over about. We don't have enough time to talk about them
That's
today.
Fair.
But we will save them for many future installments down the line, if you care to listen, my dear friends.
Yeah.
What we're going to be doing is, I will do the same thing we did with Behind the Screens episode 1, where we'll talk about the plot, then we'll talk about everything behind the scenes related, the positives, the negatives, and we'll try to make this as enjoyable as a thing as possible.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, my friends, let us delve into the synopsis of the first film of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Iron Man 2008. Tony Stark, played by the incredibly amazing Robert Downey Jr., who has inherited the defense contractor Stark Industries from his late father, Howard Stark, is in war-torn Afghanistan with his friend and military liaison, Lieutenant Colonel James Rhodes, to demonstrate the new Jericho missile. After the demonstration, the convoy is ambushed, and Stark is critically wounded by a missile used by the attackers, one of his company's own weapons.
Ironic.
He is captured and imprisoned in a cave by a terrorist group called the 10 Rings. Jensen, a fellow captive doctor, implants an electromagnet into Stark's chest to keep the shrapnel shards that wounded him from reaching his heart and ending his life. The Ten Rings leader, Raza, offers Stark freedom in exchange for building a Jericho missile for the group, but he and Jensen know that Raza will not keep his word and kill them both after the missile is complete. Stark and Jensen secretly build a small, powerful electro generator called an arc reactor to power Stark's electromagnet and a prototype suit of powered armor to aid in their escape. Although they keep the suit hidden almost to completion, the Ten Rings discover their hostages' intentions and attack the workshop. Jensen sacrifices himself to divert them while the suit powers up. The armored Stark battles his way out of the cave to find the dying Jensen, then burns the Ten Rings' weapons in anger and flies away, crashing into the desert and destroying the suit. After being rescued by Rhodey, Stark returns home and announces that his company will cease manufacturing any and all weapons. Obadiah Stane, his father's old partner and the company's manager, advises Stark that this may ruin Stark Industries and his father's legacy. In his home workshop, Stark builds a sleeker, more powerful version of his improvised armor suit, as well as a more powerful arc reactor for it, and his chest. His personal assistant, Pepper Potts, places the original reactor inside a small glass showcase. Though Stan requests details, a suspicious Stark decides to keep his work to himself. At a charity event held by Stark Industries, reporter Christine Everhart informs Stark that his company's weapons were recently delivered to the Ten Rings and are being used to attack Jensen's home village, Gilmira. Stark dons his new armor and flies to Afghanistan, where he saves the villagers. While flying home, Stark is attacked by two F-22 Raptors. He reveals his secret identity to Rhodey over the phone in an attempt to end the attack. Meanwhile, the Ten Rings gather the pieces of Stark's prototype suit and meet with Stan, who has been trafficking arms to the Ten Rings and has staged a coup to replace Stark as Stark Industries CEO by hiring the Ten Rings to assassinate him. He subdues Raza and has the rest of the group killed. Stan has a massive new suit reverse-engineered from the wreckage. Seeking to track his company's illegal shipments, Stark sends Potts to hack into its database. She discovers that Stan hired the Ten Rings to kill Tony, but the group revened when they realized they had a direct route to Stark's weapons. Potts meets with Agent Phil Coulson of the agency S.H.I.E.L.D., an intelligence agency, to inform him of Stan's activities. Stan's scientists cannot duplicate Stark's miniature arc reactor, so Stan ambushes Stark at his home and steals the one from inside his chest. Stark manages to get to his original arc reactor to replace it before dying. Pepper and several S.H.I.E.L.D. agents attempt to arrest Stan, but he dons his massive suit and attacks them. Stark fights Stan, but is outmatched without his new reactor to run his suit at full capacity. The fight carries Stark and Stan to the top of the Stark Industries building, and Stark instructs Pepper to overload the large arc reactor powering the building. This unleashes a massive electrical surge that causes Stan and his armor to fall into the exploding reactor, killing him. The next day at a press conference, Tony Stark publicly admits to the world being the superhero the press has dubbed Iron Man. In a post-credits scene, S.H.I.E.L.D. director Nick Fury, played by the amazing Samuel L. Jackson, visits Tony at his home, telling him that Iron Man is not the only superhero in the world, and explaining that he wants to discuss the Avengers Initiative, ending the movie.
Oh boy. So, with that plot synopsis, you're going to get an idea that this movie has a lot going for it.
I mean, it has so much on its plate. It manages to accomplish so much in just 2 short hours. It's almost unbelievable.
I know. And not to mention the fact, like, the post-credit scene mentioning the Avengers Initiative. Back then, this was almost unheard of. Like, are they really going to talk about the Avengers? What if this thing flops?
Exactly. The fact of the matter is they were planning so very far ahead, something that any superhero films did not do.
X-Men!
I mean, no, X-Men excluded, of course. Oh. But the fact of the matter is, these people really had an idea. There was an idea in place here. They had a plan, and they wanted to stick to it as much as possible. But of course, like we mentioned at the start of this episode, my friends, this was a gamble that many of them almost could not afford, but believe it or not, it paid off massively in their favor. This film being made on only $140 million made a massive $286 million at the box office. A big financial success for superhero movies even at the time.
Wow, that's a hard gamble, but Of course, it got outbid considering, there was another specific superhero movie at the box office that time.
Exactly, but don't worry, we'll be gushing about those movies again in a later episode, my friend.
Yeah, but, okay, can we just get to something, though? You can't go wrong with Robert Downey Jr. with this movie.
Oh, my freaking God. Let me tell you this. Tony Stark is undoubtedly Robert Downey Jr.'s best played character, at least in my opinion. Every time I see Mr. Downey Jr., I cannot unsee Tony Stark in his face. It's like he's almost become engraved, typecast in that douchey billionaire playboy-esque style, but with a heart of gold.
Yeah, or gold titanium alloy, but who's really being
Perhaps,
correct here?
yes.
But yeah, the whole cast really does an amazing job. Him, Jeff Bridges, honestly, can we talk about him? He played Stain pretty well.
I know. Believe it or not, I've always been a decent fan of Jeff Bridges, going all the way back to his appearance in the film Tron back in the 80s. The fact of the matter is, he is a mainstay of, honestly, cinema in general. The very gruff, very grandpa-esque southern look with that beard and that flowing hair. Honestly, he seems such a tough man, but a very warm actor. Not gonna lie. But the fact of the matter is, I do believe that we should at least talk about, if of course we can think of one off the top of our heads, a favorite scene from the movie with at least each of these characters.
Okay.
And I have to figure, it's a very tough choice between Mr. Jeff Bridges. Honestly, my favorite scene with him is when when he's yelling at the Stark scientists when they can't replicate the arc reactor. Tony Stark managed to build this thing in a cave! It's just like, that just shook me to my very core. It's like, are you telling me there's a comic book villain in a movie that's actually working it? I mean, this is after all of the successes of the 80s and 90s. When you thought that the good golden days of comic book movies had passed, this film seemingly had brought it all back, or it was at least one of the steps. The other one, and of course, at least for me, was when they had that moment in Tony's house when it seems like everything's going all right with Stan, and then he neutralizes Tony. He leaves him immobile on his couch with his face turning a bluish purple, and it feels like his head is going to explode. And Jeff Bridges just looking down at Tony Stark and just whispering in his ear how he made the worst choice of his life to be a hero, because in their line of work, they can't be heroes. They sell weapons. They help make war, not stop it. And it just shook me to my very core seeing this guy. I'm thinking, yo, we gotta defeat him by the end of this movie.
Yeah, I know. I agree. Honestly, I love those scenes with Jeff Bridges, but one of my favorites, honestly, the last part of the movie when he's in the Ironmonger armor. I know it's supposed to be a bigger version of Tony's suit, but this line he says to Tony and how he wants to be better than him. When Tony is gripping onto the roof and Stan is just standing there mocking him. It's like, how ironic, Tony! You wanted to be a hero, yet I'm the one on top. I know that's not right, but hey, it's sort of like...
Well, no, but it's like, very much that. It seems that he has this kind of complex of being worn out. Because the fact of the matter is, when Tony cut off all of the weapons contracts, he seemingly made Stan obsolete. That's why he's wearing the old version 1 Iron Man armor. The armor itself is obsolete. It is useless because everything will always keep evolving. And Stan always just wants to stay in the past, no matter what, because the past was better for him, but not better for the world.
So basically, are you saying Stan has some sort of a superiority complex?
Pretty much. That's why
sounds fair.
Bigger means better. That's why his giant clunky ass armor was always going all over the place, trying to blow things up. He's trying to make a point that he's still on top, but Tony proved otherwise in the very end.
That's fair. I mean, the fact of the matter is, you said, he's also relying on the past. This also implies that Tony could possibly be a futurist. He wants to build on the future of the world and make it safer.
100%. Now, can we talk about Miss Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts?
She's honestly an interesting secretary, if I'm being honest.
I know. She was one of my very first introductions to the Marvel female side character, because for the majority of the first films of the MCU, the main hero was always followed by a female counterpart, because mind you, that's how the characters were first created back in the 60s. There would always be a female following them around, always helping them, always getting them back on their feet, because, that's just how things were decades ago. Gwyneth Paltrow, I wouldn't say I like her acting style. She's very, pardon me, down to earth, I'd say. She's very stable. She's the one stable thing in Tony's constant earthquake of a world. She's always the thing keeping him tethered to the ground. And I honestly have to say, because, mind you, for a superhero that flies everywhere, he's the one thing he'll always, she is always the one thing that he will land for, no matter what.
So basically, you're deeming her an anchor now, aren't you?
No, I'm not saying she's an anchor. I'm just saying that she's the one thing that will keep the 1% of his brain that's not crazy on having all lots of fun and having all these crazy adventures. She's always the one thing that will bring him back. And
so Tony is not 100% insane. Okay, good.
No, but basically Pepper Potts is like Tony's version of Lois Lane, or basically something like that.
I can see that.
But I will share this live on this episode of the podcast. Honestly, I didn't know that Pepper's actual first name is Virginia. I honestly had no idea her name was Virginia Potts and not Pepper Potts, which was really weird. I've seen this movie at least 2 or 3 times, and I never, ever picked up on that, if I'm being completely honest.
This is news to me.
If I'd honestly have to say what my favorite scene with Pepper in like the movie was, something maybe halfway, at least around the halfway point of the film, when she comes down to Tony's workshop. And she sees that he's trying to replace the arc reactor because something has gone wrong in his old model. And he very begrudgingly asks her to yank the old one out and shove the new one into the hole. And,
that scene was hilarious.
Oh, it was amazingly funny. But it's basically a scene paradox. The fact of the matter is, I want to laugh at this scene, but a man is dying in front of me and joking about it. Like, this scene perfectly encapsulates Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark. The fact of the matter is that even in the face of certain doom, he'll always find a way to make the audience smile. And I have to say, like Gwyneth Paltrow's expression of terror and anxiety about having to rip this thing out of him is just fantastic. I'm just laughing at her, and I'm terrified for Mr. Stark on the table.
Honestly, sounds like a first-time surgeon when she's falling. I was like, it's so slimy.
It's so weird that she didn't know what the game Operation was. I'm pretty sure there's not a kid on the planet that hasn't heard of the game Operation. Even back in 2008, people would have known what that game was.
It got a redesign, so sure.
If I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, honestly, that scene with Pepper was great. My favorite with her is honestly like... It's the one time you'll blink and you'll miss it, where she comes down to Tony's workshop, and Tony's coming out of the armor, and then the look on her face is like, why am I with this man? And Tony looks at her, and he's like, let's be honest, this is not the craziest thing you've seen me do. Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what has he done that's crazier that she's seen?
We will never know.
Yeah, but yeah, like... Pepper can do comedy. Although, you don't want to rely on it so much. Otherwise, the woman becomes a laughingstock and becomes a bit of a problem.
Absolutely. We'll be talking a lot more about her as we go through the rest of the film saga of the MCU and going forward. But now let us talk about the black sheep in the room. The actor portraying James Rhodes in this movie, one of the MCU's many anomalies, Terrence Howard, portraying the inaugural appearance of Mr. James Rhodes.
This is interesting. Look, even though we know nowadays Rhodey is portrayed by Don Cheadle, I was fine with Terrence Howard's performance because it was kind of like a natural... Like, Don Cheadle was a natural progression to a better side of Rhodey, but Terrence Howard was like a roadie that was grounded and mostly attuned with more of the Air Force stuff than stuff with Iron Man.
100%. He's basically, Tony's second in command, his best man. The fact that the best bro that's always going to be there for him. As much as I like Rhodey going through all of the many movies, he was never really one of my favorite characters in these films, even after they recast Don Cheadle as him. But of course, we'll get to all that going forward. Honestly, the only thing I have to say about Rhodey in this film is that he plays the very good best friend guy. He's he's very serious. He has portrays many kinds of emotions. Terrence Howard did a very okay job, and I'm very sad that his deal with the movies didn't work out. But you know what? Everything worked out as well as it could. It could have gone so much worse, but I'm really glad we got what we got with him.
Yeah, exactly.
And now, speed round with all the many side characters that would get many bigger roles going forward. Beginning with, of course, let's do a little speed round here. We have Mr. Jon Favreau playing Happy Hogan and also going as the director of the film.
Well, that was a good one. Honestly, he's a good job. Like I know not so much in this movie, but in the other MCU movies he appears in, Happy is sometimes really funny.
Oh, I know. Happy is one of the most amazing comic relief in any, not only comic book series, but in all of these movies combined. My relationship with Jon Favreau is honestly a very interesting one. Like, I really love some of his performances. I think he's a very amazing person, a very influential actor, but I've never liked everything he's done. But of course, that's not something that will portray to Iron Man, of course.
Yeah.
What I can honestly say is, even though his role in this film was very, very small, only to grow bigger as the years went on with his involvement with these stories would only get more and more convoluted, I'll have to say he put on a very stellar first time out. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah, that's fair. And given the fact what Jon Favreau does nowadays, like, he is one of the most iconic Hollywood thespians out there. He's not only acts, he's also a writer, a producer, and a director. I'm thinking to myself, wow, this guy's good.
I know, he blew up really fast and really amazing, and I think it has a lot of things to do with Iron Man 1. Next is Mr. Paul Bettany as Jarvis.
Oh, yeah, Jarvis is... The acronym is very interesting. Just a regular virtual intelligence system. What more could you ask for?
Which is honestly crazy to think because, obviously, remind me, Jarvis was an actual human butler in the comics, correct?
That's right,
so,
yes.
So the fact that they made him an artificial intelligence for this new age sci-fi action thriller was honestly so cool. I have to think about it because I'm pretty sure, this was basically around the time when CG was turning from mediocre to passable, but then this film really took it right into the frickin' stratosphere with Mr. Jarvis. He was really funny. Paul Bettany's voice is honestly one of the greatest things that ever came out of these films.
Yeah.
And of course, later on with all the expanded roles that he would later get in the MCU going forward. But I'd honestly have to say, knowing all the things that I have seen Paul Bettany in, and no doubt a bunch of the things that we'll be talking about him later on in this podcast series, I'd have to say the MCU's version of Jarvis and another character he would later go on to play is honestly my favorite role of his.
Really?
Yes, believe it or not.
That is a bold claim, but I can stand by that because some of Jarvis's lines are, one, they're very hilarious. Two, they're very, very accurate and seem like they don't want us to make us feel stupid.
Oh, no.
And three, the matter of the fact is, he's basically, well, an emotional support for Tony when Rhodey or Pepper is not in the picture.
Who needs a dog when you can have a robot talking in your ear?
Exactly.
Or better yet, why can't our phones do that? We need our own version of Jarvis. That would be so totally awesome. You know what? If you can't afford it and you are watching, please make more so we can have some. Okay, number 3 is Mr. Phil Coulson. Let me tell you, I don't really know if I like Phil Coulson or not. Like, I mean, okay, let me elaborate. He's fine in small bursts. Like you have him over here, then over there, then over here. He's fine in a very limited capacity, and the more that we saw him after this film, he only got better and better. Like, the fact of the matter is, even though I wasn't quite sure how to feel about him, he just felt like another background character until you saw S.H.I.E.L.D.'s true nature. But only as the films went on would you understand his true importance in the MCU.
That is true. I mean, Clark Gregg did give a good performance of Coulson. Like, it showed that he was serious and not trying. He's trying to stay serious about saying something that's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the fact of the matter is, the stuff that's coming out of his mouth is so outlandishly ridiculous, but he says it so flat and so straight. You can't help but think he's pulling a fast one.
He's seen this stuff before and is used to it.
It's basically like a man flying around in a yellow and red iron suit is just another Tuesday for this guy. I mean, seriously. I mean, who talks like that? How crazy does your ass have to be?
Oh, easy.
I'm just saying. But then, of course, we come to one of the crowning platinum jewels of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Oh, yes. This man only has 2 minutes of screen time in this movie, but that was all we needed to sell this character. Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson.
Honestly, you can't go wrong with Samuel L. Jackson in anything.
I mean,
even if the movie is bad, if he's there, it's fine.
Even so, that is so gosh darn true. Even films made in this, our year of the Lord 2021, he's still making bangers, even in the worst of movies, pulling everything he has to save even the most dying of projects. And this film was no different. I would give this movie 2 stars immediately after seeing his 2 minutes of screen time. I was that sold right immediately up there. If this man snuck into my room, sat in a chair in the corner, and said, I want to talk to you about a proposition, I would immediately be sold. I'd ask no questions.
I sit there, like, I come home, I see him, like, what are you doing here?
Just shut up and take my money.
Okay, sure.
Oh my goodness. I mean, he only, I'm pretty sure we actually went over the most important points of his after credit scene in the synopsis portion of this episode. But needless to say, he was the last thing that the audience saw. And I'm pretty sure his performance there was enough to keep them coming back in the many preceding years.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness gracious. I definitely have to say, now let us try and gush about the story in general. Was there any part of this whole first outing story that you wanted to point out?
Well, if it depending on honestly, the reporter Christine, what's her last name?
Christine Everhart. Oh my God. Well, I mean, to be fair, I have a love and hate relationship with her.
Me too.
Because of course, I know that there are definitely reporters out there who would sleep with people to get a story. I'm definitely knowing there is. But the fact of the matter is, she treats Tony so bad, even after everything that he went through. He saved the city for whatever city that the first movie takes place in. Mm-hmm. He did all of that. Well, mind you, however, she treats him poorly before he says, I am Iron Man, so I guess we can't obscure that knowledge.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, if only we saw her more going forward to see, maybe there could have been some redemption there, maybe one or two scenes in the sequel that would later come out, but of course, then again, we'll never know.
Yeah, we'll get there when we get there. But yeah, she is, there were some stuff she said that shows you that she is a good journalist, but again, like you mentioned, that she literally slept with Tony to get a story. I'm thinking to myself, she's basically now considered Tony Stark a conflict of interest.
She pretty much is, yeah. I definitely have to say the second. You know what, actually, we forgot to talk about Mr. Tony Stark. Obviously, we forgot to gush about him. We've been gushing about everybody else. We completely forgot to gush about him.
A review about Iron Man, and we barely talk about Iron Man.
I know. The fact of the matter is, we wanted to give everybody else just as much screen time, just so that they didn't feel jealous. Okay,
oh, yeah.
So I'd have to start from, as I go back through my notes about the synopsis, Robert Downey Jr. was born to play Tony Stark.
Yeah, pretty much.
There couldn't have been anybody else, even after going forward all these years, if they do any other interpretations of Mr. Stark that's not Robert Downey, they need to look and or sound like him. Otherwise, it's just not accurate to me anymore.
Okay, you have some low standards.
You mean I have high standards, and I don't have high standards. I just require specific conditions to make a good story to please my senses. The fact of the matter is, this man's an amazing joy from beginning to end. Robert Downey's soul sells us his performance from start to finish with his highs, his lows, his convictions, every single thing, every interaction he has with everybody. You want to keep watching. There's never a moment that I feel dull or bored watching this man act.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, Tony has some of the best. Has some of the best. Not just this movie, but any other MCU appearance he's in, he seals the show. Because, he started this whole thing.
Exactly. And, I really wish I could go into more specifics about Tony Stark's nature, my friends. But you'll have to keep tuning into episodes week after week. Because we can't keep gushing about future events. We can only gush about these events that we're telling you right now. So, in the terms of this movie, Tony Stark is a very privileged man who thinks himself above the rest because he owns one of the biggest weapons contracts in the amazingness of the United States, until his life is completely turned upside down after one of the greatest scenes of cinema right off the bat, when the Jericho missile hits the mountain, blows everybody away except Mr. Stark. Now, I'm going to leave this little message in your head, my friends, and I will come back to it when we get to a later film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, when he says that the best kind of weapon is a weapon that you only have to use once to win a war. Now, I'm not going to tell you what of course I mean by that. If you have seen all of these films, then you probably do, but for those who haven't, stay tuned.
Oh yeah, that line says it all.
Now, of course, there's the scene when Tony is kidnapped by the terrorists. The fact of the matter, he's just cruising in the back of a massive military vehicle, taking selfies with soldiers, only to be knocked out. It's so freaking intense because you have no idea what's going on, and they make it brutally realistic about how it probably was down there in Afghanistan so many years ago.
Yeah, bit of a smash cut thing too, because they're just cruising along, talking, having fun, listening to some AC/DC, and then the next thing you know, boom! I'm thinking to myself, oh no.
Was the Iron Man song from AC/DC too, or is that something else I'm thinking
I think
about?
that's something else.
Yeah, I'm thinking, because I keep thinking about the Iron Man wrestling tune, but I never know who sings it. And for anybody who does, please be sure to give us a call. But then, of course, he's kidnapped by the terrorist group, the Ten Rings. We'll be talking about them at least a couple more times in several future stories, but for now, all we can tell you is that they're a really big terrorist group that may look cliched on the outside, but spans far and wide in the quote-unquote Marvel Universe.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then of course, you have Tony's interactions with Jensen. While brief, they're very, very deep. Because the fact of the matter is because it shows that Tony's looking at a darker reflection of himself. Every single one of these characters, like Obadiah Stane and Jensen, reflect Tony in some matter. Obadiah is who Tony almost turned into and tried for the rest of these movies to not turn into, and then Jensen was the person he wanted to be. His sacrifice would be the ultimate step forward. The moment that Tony Stark opened his eyes and dug up his heart, which had been buried for so many years after a tragic event in his life. But of course, we have the fight that which Tony Stark uses the Mark I to blast the terrorists away.
Yes, that scene is so sick.
I know, the fact it's so clunky and so comic accurate too. Way back to Tony's very first appearance in, I believe, was it Tales of Suspense number 39?
Around there, yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. It looks just like that one is. And of course, this movie's opening scene takes a lot from Tony's first appearance way back in those days, just a lot less racist.
Yeah, a lot more black and white and not so much yellow, if you catch my drift.
Ooh, I'm pretty sure we should move on from that.
Sorry.
Basically, yeah, the massive explosion that Tony creates, blowing up all his weapons, signifying that he is done making things to destroy and only things to protect and save. He's burying his past and launching into his future. It's so freaking amazing.
Plus, he personified the expression, heroes aren't born, they're built.
Which is nuts. I think that's so inspiring. It's like, seriously. And then, of course, you have Tony's turnaround, all of his interactions with Rhodey and Pepper and Jarvis, Happy, and Obadiah. There's so much centered around Tony in this story that I can't believe how well they fit it all into 2 hours.
Yeah, who would have thought?
Which is absolutely nuts. And of course, I have to gush about yet another scene. When Tony goes to save Jensen's village. To save the people Jensen wanted to go back to more than anything. Fulfilling a promise to a dead friend. And the effects alone blew me away for 2008. It really looked like he was being shot at.
Tell that to Skywalker sound. The sound is not the sound like it has that extra crunch. It makes you feel like you're actually in the fight.
I know, it really felt like, oh my god, I'm actually in a battlefield. Like, there are so few movies, even war dramas, and I've seen plenty of those, my friends, where it hardly ever felt I was part of the action. But this really makes you feel like you're there with Tony, saving lives, which is a most important part of a superhero story in film, which is hardly ever done. If you look at a lot of films, you know they just gloss over saving people. And if they do, it's not on purpose. Because
I guess that sounds accurate.
But of course, the fact of the matter is the build-up is so tense between these characters. You know that a big, massive battle is going to take place, and even though it may not be the best final fight in any of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, I do think that everything else in this movie makes it a mainstay that this is where everything started, the starting point. No matter what problems you may have with this movie, they had no idea if there would ever be more. They just hoped. They bet everything they had on a dream. Stan Lee's dream. Jack Kirby's dreams. And in the end, it came true.
Yeah, I mean, before May of 2008, who was Iron Man? A B-list comic character that only diehards knew.
Exactly.
Now, the casual moviegoer and casual people are wearing Iron Man-related stuff.
Like, the fact of the matter is, before I started watching the MCU and played the Iron Man video games, you want to know who Iron Man was to me? My least favorite popsicle flavor. Like, that is what it was. Every time my grandma bought me the Marvel popsicles, I always ate Hulk first, then Captain America. I always threw Tony's popsicles away.
Why?
I never wanted any of them.
What? Was the flavor bad?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that was it.
What flavor was it? Cherry or something?
No, it was like a mixture of lemon and cherry.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, like it's like, okay, I get it. You had to shove yellow and red on a popsicle stick and feed it to kids. You could have made it tastier.
Yeah,
you could have made it tastier.
That's like
as tasty as this movie.
You can't mix sour and sweet. It just won't work.
But you know what? Sour and sweet, perfect way to personify Tony Stark.
That's fair.
In the best possible way.
But what exactly was the critical response for this movie?
Believe it or not, this film was actually the 8th highest financially successful film of 2008. The film received massive praise from critics, but most definitely was Robert Downey Jr.'s performance as the sole highlight of it all.
Yeah,
honestly.
because before this, Robert Downey Jr. got involved in a lot of stuff.
I know, a lot of bad things, even a brief stint in prison, actually. But of course, I'll basically honestly say that this film was what saved his career for the better, because I really cannot see a cinema world these days without Mr. Robert Downey Jr. If I can believe it or not. I do believe that this will be the portion of the show where we briefly discuss how many, a few awards or nominations that each of the films that we gush about bi-weekly received, actually.
I doubt this movie got nominated for an Oscar or something.
No, but believe it or not, there are no Oscar nominations or nothing. This film got nominated and received awards in a bunch of different shows except the Oscars, which is absolutely bonkers. This film was nominated for 2 Academy Awards for Best Sound Editing and Best Visual Effects.
Never
honestly.
won?
Nope. It actually was nominated for a favorite movie at the 2008 Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. It received 2 nominations at the MTV Movie Awards for Best Movie and Robert Downey Jr. for Best Male Performance. Not to mention a nomination at the Hugo Awards for Best Dramatic Presentation, Long Form of Filmmaking. And, of course, the film's soundtrack was actually nominated for a Grammy Award, believe it or not. Let me take a few look at these here.
I'm guessing it didn't. Did it win anything?
Yes. Let me take a look at the several wins that this film actually made. The film won an MTV Movie Awards for Best Summer Movie so far in 2008.
Okay, that's at least good.
Not to mention, Robert Downey Jr. won a Best Sci-Fi Actor Scream Award, which is mostly associated with horror films, but they sometimes group in sci-fi films as well.
That's fair, but wow.
Let me take a look if they won anything else. No, believe it or... Oh, actually, yes. They actually won several other things. Let's see. The film won how many Saturn Awards? Let me just do a quick double check. 3 Saturn Awards. The film won a Best Sci-Fi Film Saturn. Robert Downey Jr. won Best Actor at the Saturn Awards, and of course, Jon Favreau won Best Director at the Saturn Awards.
There it is.
This film won so many nominations and so many awards. I highly advise you to look them all up yourself, because the list just goes on and on and on.
So it proves that, again, this movie really has stood the test of time.
Indeed, it really has. A testament to the utter spectacle that comic book movies would eventually become today, if a bit too rampant, but of course we will get to that at a much later time. But seeing as how we are coming down the wire, I should probably mention that depending on the length of each of the films we discuss bi-weekly here at Behind the Screens, these episodes may be a tad bit shorter than our television reviews because we have gradually a lot less to talk about.
Yeah, and there's a lot more to wrap up considering, we don't have multiple weeks to discuss stuff.
Exactly. So now we'll be entering into the closing minutes. Chris, how would you yourself perceive Iron Man 2008?
Honestly, it's like a real staple for the comic book movie franchise, because this film, it made me a fan of Tony Stark. It showed I always knew Tony as sort of an arrogant person, arrogant playboy. Then I see his heroic side, and I'm thinking, okay, that's fine. And then I see the movie, I'm like, wow, he is good. He is good. I mean, it's not all there. It's not because, A, no movie's perfect, and B, I feel like there's some stuff that could have been a little forgettable. The fact of the matter is, this movie has a couple smash cuts. They say something, but then do the opposite is said. Like the scene where Tony says, just tell the reporters it was a training exercise. Isn't that the usual BS? I'm not saying that. An unfortunate training exercise. I'm like, dude, what? But other than that, And the fact is that Obadiah Stane is still one of the better MCU villains, but not by a long shot. He's not like up there.
He's good, but not top S tier.
Pretty much, yeah. And some other stuff I mentioned, like I still think the movie still holds up after all these years, and is still a great movie to watch alone or with good friends that are Marvel fans. So all of that, my number rating for this, I have to give Iron Man a solid 9 out of 10.
Wonderful indeed. Now, thinking all the way back to when I was 8 years old, when this film first came out, I bought the video game because I'm thinking to myself, well, this is rated teen, so clearly it must be action-packed, and I love action. I really enjoyed Tony Stark back then, but I would never fathom how much of an impact him, Robert Downey Jr., or any of these films would have on me in my adult years thus far. Seeing a man basically start at the top, fall down to nothing, and claw his way not back up to the top, but to a place where he was comfortable with. To see a colorful cast of characters with so many different varying personalities and stories, either wanting to help him or bring him down. A constant emotional struggle from beginning to end, a hero's journey through and through. Iron Man is one of the most perfect superhero films I've probably ever seen. And it's honestly one of the films I hold when looking at any and all of the MCU properties. The fact of the matter is, if the closer you can get to Iron Man, folks, the better. So the fact of the matter is, seeing as how this is Robert Downey Jr.'s first going out in a superhero film, one that he would gradually become critically acclaimed for, the amazing action, the outstanding effects, the long-lasting impact it would have not only on cinema, but on my life in general, I would have to profoundly and without hesitation grant 2008's Iron Man the letter ranking of A+.
Whoa!
Like one of the highest awards I could ever award to a movie. Something that very few films have ever done. Well, obviously I wouldn't say very few. I can name at least 25 or 30. But the fact of the matter is, out of the near 1,000 films I've seen in just 4 years, to say only 30 have reached the top tier-ish, that's a very high honor. And those who made this film, Jon Favreau, Mr. Downey Jr., the guys who would write Transformers 5, who wrote the script, because the fact of the matter is, you should all be very, very proud. Like, I have to give you a silent pat on my back. You guys can't hear it because you're off there in TV land, but I assure you, it's happened.
Oh yeah, If you're a Marvel fan, watch this movie. It's on Disney Plus. You can still get it on Blu-ray. It's everywhere, really.
Exactly. So if you're really interested in seeing what the heck is the MCU that my friends will not shut up about, please buy or rent Iron Man. Highly recommended, my friends, from your boys here at Behind the Screens.
All right, that'll do it for today's episode, everybody.
But before we go, we must tease our next movie review, because we will not be going into the next film of the MCU in 2 weeks when we return for our second movie review in episode 4, my friends. We will be looking at what many would consider to be the original smash hit superhero film of the 21st century. In 2 weeks, when we return to talking about movies after we talk about more Batman the Animated Series next week, we'll be looking at 20th Century Fox's 2000 film, X-Men.
Ooh, that should be fun. So going from heroes to mutants. Same thing.
Same thing, yeah. And just as entertaining.
Yeah. All right, that'll do it for today's episode, everyone. Hope you enjoyed, and until next time, I'm Chris.
I'm Mike.
This has been Behind the Screens, and we'll see you next time.
Peace, my friends. Have a good day.